Some stories you can taste, and none is sweeter than the legend of maple syrup. The first drops are nearly invisible, clear as glass, slipping from a maple tree into a waiting pail. They fall one at a time, steady as a heartbeat. In the sugar bush at dawn, the air is sharp, the ground still frozen, but there's a whisper of spring. Sap drips into buckets, and inside the shack, fires roar, sending steam curling into the rafters. The smell is unmistakable, wood smoke and caramel. This is where Canada's sweetest story begins. Long before explorers carved their names into the St. Lawrence Valley, Indigenous peoples were already telling the story of maple syrup. For some, it begins with a squirrel, quick and clever, spotted drinking from a wounded branch. Hunters, watching with curiosity, tried the clear liquid themselves and discovered its sweetness. Others tell of Sweetest and Moqua. One day, Moqua ran out of water while cooking moose meat. She filled her pot with sap from a nearby maple, and as it boiled down, syrup appeared at the bottom. What began as an accident became a gift. Among the Anishinaabe and Abenaki, there's the story of Nanaboozho. In the beginning, sap flowed thick and sweet straight from the trees, no boiling required. But Nanaboozho, ever the teacher, saw danger in that ease. People would grow lazy, he feared, and forget gratitude. So he thinned the sap with water, leaving only a faint sweetness. From then on, families had to gather, boil, and work for the gift. The lesson was clear: sweetness must be earned. Each story is different, yet they all point in the same direction. Maple syrup was never just sugar. It was sacred, seasonal, a reminder of respect and patience. And when Europeans first encountered it, they could hardly believe what they were seeing. In 1557, the French writer André Thevet tried to describe the miracle of S8B, calling it finer than wine. Half a century later, Marc Lescarbot in Acadia watched First Nations communities gather sap in hollowed logs and clay pots, boiling it down to a golden syrup. Settlers were fascinated and grateful too. In the biting cold of New France, sweetness meant survival. They borrowed what they could: wooden troughs to catch sap, sticks sharpened into spouts. Before long, iron kettles replaced clay, metal taps replaced wood. The process grew faster, but something of its ceremonial meaning was lost. Still, there was awe in every drop. Imagine a family standing in the forest, snow crunching beneath their boots, watching clear water trickle from the bark. To them, it wasn't just sugar, it was proof that spring had returned. Over time, that small miracle grew into celebration. By the 1800s, in Quebec especially, the cabane à sucre had become a seasonal pilgrimage. Families bundled in wool blankets rode out in sleighs to wooden shacks tucked deep in the forest. Inside, the air was thick with steam, kettles boiling furiously. Outside, children pressed sticks into pans of fresh snow, rolling sticky ropes of maple taffy. There was laughter, fiddles playing, and long tables groaning under hearty meals. Split pea soup, baked beans, fresh bread, always finished with syrup. Sugaring off was no longer just about making syrup. It was about community, about marking the end of winter, about reminding yourself that joy could be bottled in a jar. Even today, sugar shacks remain one of Quebec's most cherished traditions, but the story of maple syrup has also taken turns into struggle, and sometimes into crime. In 2012, Canadians learned just how valuable this liquid gold had become. News broke of a theft that seemed more like a movie than reality. Over the course of months, thieves siphoned nearly 3,000 tons of maple syrup from Quebec's strategic reserve. They rolled barrels out of warehouses, replaced them with water, and moved the stolen syrup in the dead of night. By the time the plot was uncovered, the loss was worth more than $18 million. Reporters called it the Great Maple Syrup Heist. What had once been sacred legend was now high-stakes business, with global buyers waiting in line. But not all struggles were so dramatic. Take Angèle Grenier, a small producer in Quebec who refused to sell her syrup through the federation that controlled nearly all production. For her, maple syrup was a family craft, not a commodity. She fought in court for years, risking fines and bankruptcy, simply for the right to sell her own syrup. Her story became a symbol of independence in the face of regulation, a reminder that even sweetness can come with bitterness. And now a new challenge stirs in the sugar bush: climate change. Syrup makers whisper that the trees wake too soon, that freeze-thaw cycles arrive earlier, that the sap runs shorter and thinner. A season that once stretched 6 weeks may now last only 3. Forests shift, maps of maple ranges inch northward. Modern tools like vacuum pumps and reverse osmosis try to keep yield steady, but the truth is in the trees. The story of syrup is changing, and no one knows exactly what the ending will be. When we return to the sugar bush, it's easy to forget the struggles and focus on the sweetness. For most Canadians, maple syrup is less about crime or climate than about taste, memory, and identity. The maple leaf waves from our flag, but it is the syrup that fills our kitchens. On pancakes and waffles, yes, but also brushed over salmon fillets, stirred into cocktails, baked into cookies. During the Second World War, when sugar was rationed, Canadians turned proudly to maple syrup as their sweetener, keeping traditions alive even in lean times. Step into a sugar shack today, and you'll still find the same warmth. Wooden beams heavy with steam, fiddles playing in the corner, children running outside with taffy sticks. The bottles may look sleeker, golden maple syrup bottles, elegant packaging for export, but the ritual remains. Families gather, stories are told, and the gift of the maple tree continues to flow. Beyond Canada, barrels cross oceans. Nearly 3/4 of the world's maple syrup comes from Quebec, and buyers from the United States to Japan see it as a luxury, a taste of place. For them, it's exotic. For us, it's home. And that is the heart of this legend. Maple syrup is both humble and extraordinary, both a kitchen staple and a sacred gift. It was born in Indigenous stories, adopted by settlers, celebrated in sugar shacks, and fought over in warehouses. It has been survival, identity, and even currency. But through all of it, it has remained what it always was, a reminder that sweetness comes with patience. So the next time you pour syrup on your plate, pause for a moment. Imagine the squirrel lapping sap from a branch. Imagine Moqua discovering syrup in a pot. Imagine the steam rising in a sugar shack, or the barrels rolling out of a warehouse in the dark. Maple syrup is all of these things, a legend, a struggle, a celebration. And above all, it is a taste of Canada, liquid gold, drawn from the trees, carrying the memory of every spring that came before.